Hello, and welcome to Ready for Rome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Shelley Ruel, and I am the community manager at Italia Pass, and I have lived in Rome for over 20 years now. And I am joined by my colleague Sofia Baragaglia, and she is Italian and works as an Italia Pass Italy experience specialist. So we're going to be guiding you through this presentation today with some information about Rome. And between the both of us, we have quite a bit of experience about life here in Italy and working with travelers to Italy. So we're excited to lead you through some of this information today and hope that it will be really helpful for your trip to Rome. Before we get started, though, I wanted to introduce just a little bit about what is Italia Pass because people do wonder. I think a lot of you are probably here today because you purchased tickets with Italia Rail, train tickets. And so there's a bunch of partner brands, Italia brands. So since 1987, these different brands, which are Italia Rail, Italia Tours, Italia Drive, and Italia Hotels, have worked with millions of tourists exploring Italy. And the CEO of Italia Rail decided that he wanted to create Italia Pass to help his customers have the best trip to Italy ever. So it's a membership benefits program. So for $149 membership, you get over $500 plus in value for your Italy trip. So we'll be talking a little bit about those benefits today, in addition to our tips about traveling here in Rome. So here's what we plan to cover today. First, we're going to talk about your arrival at FCO, which is the Fiumicino Airport, also known as Leonardo da Vinci, because most of you will probably be arriving into Rome through the airport. And it's located about a half an hour outside of the city. So we're going to explain the different ways that you can get into the city from the airport. We'll talk a little bit about our Italia Pass Lounge at Rome's Termini train station. I'll talk a little bit about how you can get around on public transport within the city, as well as restaurants and how to avoid some of the most common tourist traps. We'll also be telling you about how you can get some complimentary access to tours and $100 off an Italia Tours experience. I'll wrap it up with a couple more of my local tips, and then we'll open it up for a live Q&A. We'll have about 15 minutes for questions. And the way that will work is on the bottom of your screen where the icons are, you should see a Q&A. It might be under the chat button. But if you see the Q&A, then you can, or under more perhaps, yeah, it's under, I think, more. If you click on the Q&A, then you'll be able to type your questions and you can type them at any time throughout the presentation and we'll do those at the end. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Sophia, who can tell you about how to get into the city from the airport.
Thank you, Shelley. And hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining us today. As we mentioned, yeah, you've arrived at FCO Airport. This is quite a big airport, so you'll want to get presumably into the city of Rome, and you'll have a few options to do so. As you see on the slide, they're all indicated in the terminal, so it should be fairly easy to get around. And the first option is a train, of course, to reach Roma Termini. There's a train called Leonardo Express. This is a direct train that goes straight to Roma Termini, which of course it's the main train station in Rome. It's about $16 on Italia Rail. Or another train that you can take is another regional that also departs from the airport, but it can go to smaller stations in Rome. So you can reach Trastevere or Ostiense, depending on where you're planning on staying in the city. Both of these trains are considered regional trains, so really depends on your preference. Both are fairly direct and a good option if you want to start your adventure with the train. I would say for tickets, as I mentioned, we do sell them on Italia Rail. We get a lot of questions from people asking if you should book them in advance. My suggestion would be yes, generally speaking, especially if you're traveling during high season. So let's say May to early October. It does get very busy and very crowded, so you will want to plan as many things as you can in advance. And of course, the Leonardo Express train tickets that I mentioned earlier are time specific. So you will want to plan ahead and figure out exactly when you will be on the train. I believe there is a delay allowed of 90 minutes, but it's only 90 minutes. So we usually recommend booking at least, I would say, an hour and a half, perhaps 2 hours after your scheduled landing. Um, and definitely no trains from Rome Termini before that time, because it does take 30 minutes to get there from the airport. So it's always better to leave a bit of time. And if you get to Termini early, then you can grab a coffee or perhaps relax in the lounge. But in general, just make sure you have enough time to make it to the train, and you should be fine. We always recommend having a 20-minute buffer-ish to get to your platform and finding your way through the station. So yeah, again, any train from Termini about 3 hours, and the Leonardo Express or the regional train, an hour and a half, 2 hours would be the best option. Some other options that we have, of course, are taxis. There's a fixed rate of 55 euros from FCO. Um, there are also shuttle buses, or you can book a private transfer with us if you want to go straight to your accommodation in Rome, or just reach the train station with a private vehicle. That is an option. And another question that comes up a lot is, should I rent a car? Um, Now, there's no universal answer to this one. It heavily depends on what your trip will look like, but a general rule of thumb is if you will be visiting remote areas, let's say. So the perfect example is always the Tuscan countryside. Beautiful. If you get the chance to check it out, you will not regret it, but we do recommend renting a car in that case, just because the more, let's say, remote areas of Italy that are not necessarily in the orbit of a big city may get a bit tricky with trains or even just local transport in general. So it is a good idea to have a car in these areas. However, if you're just, planning on visiting the main cities, let's say Rome, Florence, then you go up to Venice and Milan, the best way to travel in between cities is the train. So in this case, if you're planning on staying in a city, you you can get a car if you'd like, but it's just much more comfortable to get around with the trains and the local transport. So yeah, if you're looking to explore that way, there's also some traffic laws in Italy that can get a bit tricky. So yeah, not the best for cities, but definitely for anything that's outside of that. Regardless, if you do decide to rent a car, you can do so on our platform, Italia Drive, and you do get a $10 discount as an Italia Pass member, which you can redeem after booking with us. Then we have the lounge, which is another perk of being a member of our program. The Italia Pass Lounge is located in Rome Termini, so the station I mentioned before. It's a great place to relax if you have some time before boarding a train or you're waiting for your hotel check-in time. You can just relax there. And in the lounge itself, you will find free Wi-Fi, espresso, refreshments. Um, you will also find our hosts who can, help you figure out your way through Rome, or if you have any questions about Italy, they're just as knowledgeable as we are. So you can just stay there, chat with them, get a coffee. And of course, if you have any luggage that you need to store for whatever reason, we do offer free luggage storage for both carry-ons and larger suitcases. As long as it's within the opening hours, you can take advantage of that benefit. And I guess now I'll hand it over to Shelley for some information on public transport within the city.
Okay, thank you. So, talking about public transport, Rome is a very walkable city, so you'll be able to get around easily by walking. But if you do want to take the bus, it's ATAC is the name of the company. We have three types of transport. We have primarily buses, we have two subway lines, and we have a couple of trams as well. The tickets are relatively inexpensive compared to other large European cities. The tickets cost €1.50. They are time limited tickets, so they don't work by zones. They work by time. So they're good. One ticket is good for 100 minutes from the first time that you board whatever transport you board and validate that ticket. If it's a paper ticket, I'm going to talk about non-paper tickets in just a second. But in any case, you have 100 minutes on any public transport for that 150, with the exception of you just get one subway trip within that 100 minutes. So that means that you can board the subway, you can change lines from A to B, but once you leave the subway station, that ticket is no longer good for any more subway rides. However, if you still have time within that 100 minutes, you can ride the buses or the trams up until the time that the ticket expires. And so I didn't mention, but the subway of the two lines, one is A and one is B, and they only cross at one point at Termini. So if you need to change from line A to B, that's where you're going to change. Now, if you don't want to get a paper ticket, it's more convenient to pay with a contactless payment. So like a contactless card, debit, credit card, or a payment method that you have on your smartphone. You can use the tap and go. Most of the buses now have been updated to use the system, and all the metro, all the subway stations have this system at the turnstiles. The only thing here is you can only use one card for each rider. So if you're in a traveling party like with 4 people, everyone needs to have their own payment method. And the reason for that is because your payment method is considered your ticket. So if, for example, this would happen more on the bus, inspectors don't generally check on the metro because you have to pass through a turnstile to get into the subway. But on our city buses, no one will check you when you get on the bus. You'll simply board the bus, and then you're responsible for having a valid ticket. And the way that they monitor that is by occasionally random checks will come onto the bus. Will be an inspector that may come on the bus to check that everyone on board has a ticket. So if that happens, then you would show your payment method. You would either show the method on your smartphone or your contactless payment card as proof of your ticket because they have that registered in their system. Now, if you don't have the tap and go and you want to have a bus ticket on hand, just in case the bus that you board doesn't have that system, you can purchase paper tickets. They're called a biglietto. That's singular. One biglietto would be un biglietto. You can buy those at machines, which are located in the subway stations. You won't find machines at the bus stops. If you want to board a bus, you'll have to pick up a ticket prior to boarding the bus. You can get those at the tobacconists. They're called a tabaccheria. They're very easy to identify because above the door, there's a sign with a T. It's usually like a black and white sign with a T. You can buy a ticket in there, and you can also purchase tickets at the newsstands throughout the city, and you'll see those all throughout the city. And you can just ask for a biglietto if you want to practice your Italian. And you'll want to probably, if you're going to take a round trip, you want to buy 2 so that you have one for coming back. One bus line that I did want to make you aware of is Bus 64, both for a good reason and for a less fortunate reason. So Bus 64 is super convenient for visitors to the city because it's a line that has the start and end at 2 of the most popular places for tourists. So Termini Station is one of the the bus depots, and the other one is in the Vatican. So it's a very good bus route for getting from one end of the city to the other, and it will cross through a lot of the main tourist points. The only caution that I would give you about that route is, given the fact that it's so popular with tourists and visitors, it's also a magnet for pickpockets. Now, Rome is a very safe city. We don't have a lot of, or much at all, of violent crime that you'll hear about, but petty crime can be a problem because we're such a big tourist city. However, I've been here, like I said, for over 20 years, and I have never been pickpocketed. And the reason is I'm just very aware of my belongings. So I wouldn't worry. I don't say this to worry you, but just to make you aware. If you're on a bus route that's very crowded like this one, or if you're in a popular tourist area where there's a lot of people standing around in crowds, it's mainly areas where people don't have a lot of personal space, because the pickpockets will take advantage of that situation where there's jostling or people on a bus who are all crowded, or even on the metro Termini, in particular, Termini Station on the underground. They'll take advantage of that because you won't necessarily feel somebody trying to get into your bag. But that being said, if you have your bag, say for example, if you have a purse and you wear it like a cross-body bag and you keep your hand on your purse, or men carry your wallets like inside like a jacket inner pocket or in your front pocket with your hand on it, they're not going to target you because there's way too many other super distracted tourists that they can target without any trouble. So as long as you're paying attention to your surroundings, you should have no problems whatsoever. Next, I want to talk to you about some of the fun things of eating out and how to avoid tourist traps. So one thing I wanted to tell you about restaurants that might be a little bit different depending on where you come from, of what you're used to. We tend to eat later than, let's say, most places in like Canada or the United States. Lunch for us starts around 1 p.m. or even 1:30 p.m. and dinner starts around 8 p.m. or 8:30 out at restaurants. And the reason I mention this is because if you want to eat before that at one of the really local restaurants, they may not be seating prior to those times. It's not that you won't be able to eat at a restaurant earlier than that, because there's plenty of restaurants in the really busy tourist hubs that are open all day long. But if you're going to a more local restaurant, these are the times that locals eat. I put check, which is called il conto in Italian. The reason I put that here is because one question that visitors have often asked me is, how come they're not bringing my check? How come I'm waiting and they're not bringing it? And because a lot of times, like say, for example, in the United States where I'm from, when they bring all your food to the table, a lot of times they'll also leave your check and say, I'll take this for you when you're ready, because that's considered convenient so that if you're in a hurry or whenever you want to leave, you can go right away. Well, it's pretty much the exact opposite here. And the reason for that is it's seen as a courtesy to not put the check on the table until you ask for it. And the reason for that is that the waitstaff wants to respect the fact that eating out here is a time for us to spend time with our family and our friends. And so they don't want you to feel pressured to leave. Generally speaking, wherever you go in these restaurants, when you get your table, you have it for as long as you want. They're not trying to turn tables. Maybe in very popular tourist areas, or very famous restaurants with tourists. But in those cases, they're going to tell you when you sit down, you have this table until whatever. It's usually like an hour, hour and a half. But that's rare. Most of the time, you're going to find that they're not going to bring the check till you ask for it. So I just let you know that so that you don't think that the wait staff is neglecting you or ignoring you. They're actually trying to be courteous and allow you to feel rested and relaxed as long as you want to stay at that table. Another question that we get a lot is about tipping. You do not need to tip here. That's the basic general rule. It's quite different than if you're coming from, say, the US, where tipping is part of the wait staff's expected salary or income. Here, the wait staff makes a regular salary, so tipping isn't expected. At most, if you're really happy with the service, like locals might leave €1 each as a courtesy, but a lot of local people and friends that I know don't leave anything. It's not considered rude. It's not really expected. Same goes for taxis. Taxis, you don't really have to tip either. It's appreciated if you are paying in cash to round up to the next euro so that the taxi driver doesn't have to make small change. But nowadays taxis also will accept card payments. So that makes it really easy. And you'll find when you're doing the card payment, it's not going to ask you if you want to leave a tip. So just so that you know. Moving down where you see that typical Roman carbonara, it's a typical Roman pasta dish. In terms of avoiding the tourist trap restaurants, one dead giveaway that it's kind of more geared towards a tourist crowd is if they have pictures on the menu, because obviously you can imagine that Romans don't need pictures of what's on the menu. They know what the dishes are. So that's going to cater more to a tourist crowd. Or you'll find this in popular areas like around the Pantheon or the Colosseum. If you see people standing outside the restaurant and as you're walking by, they try to usher you in, like I call them promoters. That's also a restaurant that's geared towards tourists, because obviously a local restaurant doesn't need to try to get people to come inside. People already know that that's a good restaurant and they're going to have their local crowd. Now, tourist trap, is it going to be a bad meal? It depends. I mean, probably not. It'll probably be decent. But the fact of the matter is that you're in Rome, and so you're going to probably want to experience food like the locals eat. And so if that's what you're looking for, then you'll want to avoid these types of restaurants, which again are generally found in the super popular tourist monument areas. And oftentimes, if you just wander a block or two away from that big tourist hub, you're going to find local places. Gelato. So I hope that you'll try the delicious gelato here in Rome. Two things to look out for when you're getting gelato. There's a lot of gelato shops, so you don't need to get the touristy kind of gelato. This picture that you see has this gelato just like abundantly over the top of the tubs. And that's kind of a dead giveaway that it's a more commercial type of gelato, because what they do is they whip a lot of extra air into it, kind of increasing the volume of the gelato. It looks really impressive, but a real genuine gelataio, which is a person who makes the gelato, generally would never do that. It would be flush or just slightly above the metal tub, or in some cases, you'll even find that you don't see the gelato at all. There's a metal lid and there's just a board with the flavors, and then you order the flavors that you want, and they'll take the top off and fill your cone. Cones go by multiple flavors, and it usually starts at two flavors. Flavors are called gusti, so you'll probably want to keep that in mind so that you can get two flavors and then go up from there, three or even four. You can get a cup or a cone. Another tip off that it's not authentic or the most authentic type of gelato is if you're seeing these really bright, almost neon colors. That's not those are usually artificial colorings. The fruit flavored gelatos, if they're using actual fruit, they're not going to add artificial coloring. So those are just a couple things to keep in mind. Next, I'm going to pass it back over to how to get into the sites.
Thank you, Shelley. So yeah, now for all the exciting sites that you'll get to see during your stay in Rome. Now, if somebody asks, I'm in Rome, what do I see? The real answer would be everything. But since, Rome wasn't built in a day, and so it's hard to visit it in the same amount of time, I will focus on the benefits that you get as members. So Italia Pass members get a free guided tour of the Colosseum. This is one of our biggest highlights. This tour features exclusive access to the arena floor through the iconic Gladiators Gate, and it's completely free for our members. Together with our Colosseum tours, we usually have Vatican Museum tours, which may or may not include the St. Peter's Dome. These are separate tours, but can be combined with the Colosseum experience if you want to. And as an Italia Pass member, you will get $100 off of any of these tours and 10% off of any subsequent orders that you decide to place. So definitely check those out. Together with the Vatican and the Colosseum, we also have walking tours of the city, which usually include areas like Piazza Navona, the Spanish Steps, the Trevi Fountain, of course, is a big attraction. We also, this is a newer benefit, we offer complimentary access to the Pantheon, which is wonderful, to be honest, and just so much bigger once you're in person than you could possibly imagine once you're sitting in a picture. And that's for Rome. But as you can see on the slide, we also offer the Uffizi in Florence and the Accademia galleries. The Accademia is where the David is. That's how most of our travelers know the museum. And the Uffizi, of course, huge museum, definitely worth a visit if you're in the area. You can book all of these experiences on italiatours.com. And of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to email us. We're always happy to answer any questions regarding tours or help with bookings if needed. We do recommend booking these fairly early if you're planning for a trip, especially, again, as I mentioned before, during high season. It gets super busy, and just to make sure that we can get tickets for you, we recommend booking as far in advance as you possibly can. A good rule of thumb, maybe 3 to 5 months before, to be absolutely certain that that you will be able to book without any issues. We also wanted to mention a special offer. This is Italy Magazine Premium. We have a free Vatican special edition. Italy Magazine is one of our partner brands. It's a magazine that we have dedicated to all things Italy. This specific edition will give you insider tips into visiting iconic landmarks within the Vatican ahead of this year's Jubilee. So this specific version is crafted for first-time visitors or anyone who's already been to the Vatican and wants a refresher of what the visit entails. So to get access, all you need to do is just fill out a brief survey. And all of the information will be found in the ItaliaPass community. And last but not least, Rome's best kept secret, the Borgia Gallery. This is our secret gem. It's as we call it, the Borgia Gallery, one of the only places in Rome where you can access the original ancient Roman street level. This is a benefit that is exclusively available for our members. Of course, if you have a full membership and you want to bring a guest, that can be a companion member. And during your visit to this gallery, you'll hear about the fascinating history of the Borgia family, get a unique look into the Roman Renaissance, which of course is one of the most packed periods of history for the city. And of course, the visit and the history will be paired with a wine tasting and aperitivo, as we call it, which of course is one of the best ways to experience the local food culture and of course the wine culture, which is all led by one of our expert sommeliers.
Okay, so to close it out, I wanted to leave you with a couple of my local tips. The first one is the water fountains here in Rome. You'll see this picture. It's a picture of one of the water fountains. They're called Nazzoni. And the reason that they're called Nazzoni, which means big noses, or one would be Nazzone, a big nose, is because of the way those spigots pop out of the side of the fountain. The water runs continuously, as you can see in the photo. You don't turn the fountain on or off. It's just constantly coming up from a deep underground spring. It's cold when it comes out, so you don't need to buy plastic water bottles. Bring a refillable bottle, and you can refill it at any of the thousands of fountains that are around the city. There's over 1,000. And in the resource guide that I'm going to send you with a bunch of links after the presentation, I've also listed a smartphone app that's put out by the local water utility, and it has a map with all the fountains located on it. So it's kind of fun because you can look there from wherever you're at in the city. If you need to refill your water bottle, you can do that by finding it on the app. Where's your next water bottle refill? And if you want to be super local, a little insider trick. On the top of that spigot, you don't see it in the photo, but when you see these fountains in real life, you're going to see it. There's a tiny hole on the top. And how that works is if you don't have a water bottle, but you still want to take a drink, locals will plug the bottom with like their thumb, and the back pressure makes the water squirt out of the little hole like a water fountain. And you can bend down and take a drink that way. You'll see locals maybe doing that. The only caution that I have for you there is make sure you're not going to hit anybody walking by with water. That has been known to happen. The next tip I have is something that Sophia talked about when she was talking about our Borgia Gallery. I would really strongly encourage you to try an aperitivo. This is something that you may have seen in photos or may know about. The drink that you see in that photo on the right is called an Aperol Spritz. That's like one of the most iconic drinks that people have for aperitivo. So what is aperitivo? It's a before dinner kind of a drink and snack moment where you can just like a pre-dinner drink. And you can get it with alcohol or non-alcoholic. So there's lots of different options. Lots of places will offer this informally. So basically any coffee bar towards the late afternoon, the aperitivo hours around 6, between 6:30 and 8 generally. Any coffee bar will offer a very simple one. If you go in and ask, you can get a glass of Prosecco, generally outside of the city center, anywhere from 4 to 6 euros. Inside the city center, maybe a little bit more than that. If it's at a bar, they might do something very simple like potato chips and peanuts as a snack. But in the photo, you see this really abundant board with all these different finger foods. That's a place called Mecanismo. It's in Trastevere. I really like that. That aperitivo there costs about 10 euros. And so I have a link to that place with their address also. I'm not promoting it, but it's just one of the it's one of the really cool places for an aperitivo because it's so abundant. But you can find them all over. So I suggest doing that because it's a fun way to take part in the local food culture. So that wraps up our presentation. As I said, you're going to receive an email that's going to have links to some of the resources I talked about. It will have a recap of the Q&A that we're going to have right now. And it will also have this recording, this webinar recording on YouTube and a private link that's not open to the public. So if you missed anything, if you joined late, or if you want to go back, you're going to get a link to that. So be looking for that in your email inbox. It's going to go to all of those of you who registered. So now I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And what we'll do now is go to the Q&A. It's in the chat. So you should see an icon that says Q&A. You can just click there and type in your question, and we will answer them live. We have about 15 minutes to spend doing that. And so we already have one question from Nancy. I'm going to let Sophia handle this because it's a question that they normally handle with the customer service.
Absolutely. So I see here on a Colosseum tour, can you access the lower level of the Colosseum? And what is the most unique tour of the Colosseum? So for most unique, I would probably say our Gladiators Gate tour is the one that we usually recommend. However, it does not include the lower levels of the Colosseum or the underground, as it can sometimes be referred to. It includes the main arena. So that's, as I mentioned before, the one that you get through, that you can get to through that gate.
Okay, the next question is from Melissa, and she's asking, what should we know about the strike this month? What are the dates this month that may affect our travel plans? Are you aware of a strike this month, Sophia? I don't have those dates written down.
I haven't heard of one,
Yeah, I
so
haven't yet
hopefully not.
either, but Melissa, here's what I'll do. I'll look it up online and check to see because strikes do happen. They can happen unexpectedly, and they sometimes announce them even just a day or two in advance. So I'll look that up, and if I find something, I'll put that in our Q&A recap with the information about that. And so in terms of dates or this month that may affect your travel plans or strikes, I'll look that up for you. And if there's anything I see in the Italian press, I'll note that down. But just in general about strikes, strikes get a lot of press around here, especially with visitors, because it's such an unusual thing. A lot of us aren't used to, this kind of transport strike, and people are afraid, does the whole city shut down? What do I need to do to prepare? It's not as dramatic as it sometimes gets put out there. If anything, it might just cause you a delay. If you have a train booked, a regional train more than anything else, a lot of the high-speed trains, some of those are guaranteed trains, and they won't be affected by a strike. I don't know. Do you want to add anything, Sophia, about what travelers ask about strikes to reassure people, or any information that they should need if a strike should happen while you're here, which, within the next 2 weeks, we'll see.
I think you've mentioned pretty much all of it. I'm thinking even when I lived in Italy, yeah, it can get a bit annoying more than anything, but it doesn't
Yeah.
really, it's
Yeah,
not a huge
it's
deal.
mostly just an inconvenience. Generally, the way that the strikes work is they're usually on a Friday, or recently the strikes I've been seeing more are ones that start oddly on like a Saturday. They go like from a Saturday to a Sunday, like a 24-hour from a Saturday to a Sunday. So it really, really depends on the particular train that you've booked. And if your train does get canceled, in the rare event that your train does get canceled by that strike, you do have the right to a refund because of the fact that it was beyond your control. So that's something that if you purchase with Italia Rail, if your ticket is canceled, you can contact Italia Rail and they will help you with that. But again, it's something that you're unlikely to encounter, I would say. We will be there next Friday, the 18th. I'll let you do this one, Sophia. Is it too late to get Vatican tickets in Sistine Chapel?
So, the most direct answer would be no, it's not too late in general. The more detailed one would be I can check for availability if there's a specific tour that you're interested in. We can reach out and let you know about that specific tour. Different tours have different types of availability, but the general rule for the Vatican is we cannot book tickets once we're within 72 hours of a tour departure. Before that, there may be availability depending on the day, but we can definitely take a look at the specific tours. So
Okay, the next one is from Cindy. She's asking, can you discuss about any attire to be aware of? That's a great question. Also, because on social media, you'll see all sorts of warnings. Don't wear shorts. Don't wear what you want going around the city, honestly. I mean, I don't think that there needs to be so much of a, just dress what you feel comfortable in and dress for the weather. It's spring right now, so our weather is variable. There are days where it's warm, short sleeve weather, and then there are days where it's raining. So it's a very nice time to visit, though. It's not quite so busy as it will be in super high season. However, the one place where there are set rules for attire is if you're going to go into St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican, you need to have your shoulders and your knees covered. When the weather isn't so hot, this isn't generally an issue, but it's something to be aware of. So if you're wearing a tank top, you want to have a shawl maybe in your purse that you can drape over. Men, if you're wearing shorts on that particular day for that visit, you want to wear pants. They will enforce that. You will not be given access. That's a general rule for Catholic churches here in Italy in general. However, it's strictly enforced at St. Peter's, whereas I would also want to respect that for the major basilicas and some of the larger churches. If it's a smaller church, there's not going to be somebody at the door checking you, but it is respectful. So if you're going to visit churches, that's a good general rule for attire. From a local culture perspective, I did say wear whatever you want. If you want to, I mean, people will see that you're a tourist. People are like, oh, dress like this so that they won't know you're a tourist. It doesn't matter. You are a tourist. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with people still can see that I'm American. I've been here for 23 years. But the one thing I would say is flip-flops. That's like the one thing is if you wear flip-flops around the city, that's almost like a neon sign. But hey, I have some of my best friends are from California. They come, they want to wear flip-flops. But those are seen more like beach shoes here. So if you want my local tip, nix the flip-flops when you're around the city.
I would say even more than the flip-flops themselves would really turn heads is the combination of flip-flops and socks. Or, sandals
Ooh,
and
oh,
socks.
I've
That's
never seen
usually,
that. Who does that?
I've
I
seen
know
a
that
few
none
in
of our,
Venice.
I know that, oh, in Venice. Oh, because that's where you're from, right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, I know that none of the people on this webinar would have dreamed of putting socks and flip-flops together. Oh my goodness, that's funny. All right, good question, Cindy. Next one from Robert. I joined late. Sorry, is US currency accepted anywhere generally, or should we strictly use euros? Thank you. Euros. I don't know of anywhere that takes US currency, generally speaking. It's Rome isn't as much of a cash society as it used to be. You can use cards now in most places. That would be my suggestion because exchanging currency can be costly with fees and things like that, commissions. So there's really no reason to bring US currency over and change it. Just get cash directly out from an ATM. Here they're called bancomat. Go to a bank ATM. Don't go to these touristy ATMs. They're called Euronet. You'll see them in convenience areas like by a newsstand or in the airport, but you can easily, there's banks all over the city. You will have no trouble finding an official bank ATM, and they're the ones that have generally the most economical exchange rates to take the cash directly out with your bank card. All right. So Sarah, some people are sharing information about the potential strike, and so we will definitely cover that in the Q&A recap, which I will send you via email. I'll let you take this question from Charm.
Yes.
She's asking if
Well,
rain will impact tours.
mostly no, especially for we mentioned Colosseum and Vatican tours. Most of our tours are departing, rain or shine. Of course, I believe there are a couple that are specifically tied to physical activity, like Rome by bike, which of course, if you have to cycle in the rain, it can get a bit tricky, but most of them depart regardless of the weather. And for in each Italia Tours page for each tour, there is usually a section at the bottom where you can double check. So each tour will have a section saying, oh, in case of, bad weather, we might have to reschedule versus don't worry, we will go regardless of what the clouds look like.
I'll let you take the next one too. Sarah says that she bought a Colosseum ticket online by accident, not realizing it was included in the Italia Pass. Do you know if this is refundable?
Absolutely. As long as it is within the cancellation policies, you can reach out to support at italiapass.com and we will be happy to switch you to the member tour.
And I would just add, I don't know if this is the case, but it's refundable if it was an Italia Tours Colosseum ticket.
Yes,
But
yes,
if you bought,
absolutely.
and I don't know, Sarah, if you bought with another tour company, but if you bought with another tour company, we won't be able to refund that because our Colosseum ticket is with Italia Tours as part of the Italia Pass. Just wanted to put that out there just in case.
There may also be a bit of a cancellation fee with the Colosseum specifically because it's as let's say what's the word? Sorry. Um,
Anything in Italian.
Yeah, it's something related to the tickets themselves, both for the Vatican and the Colosseum. There's usually, a force majeure type of fee that we may incur. But again, if feel free to reach out. Most of the time, we can switch it for and refund most of the cost of the tour itself. So
Do you think that there's any, Cindy's asking, any specific considerations for Easter holiday travel? I I
uh
can't think of anything specific myself, other than just there may be bigger crowds because it is a popular time to visit the city.
definitely, especially this year with the Jubilee, there's a
Mhm.
strong chance I would say that it would get very crowded. Um, Other than that, I'm not sure why Easter tends to have lots of rainy weather
Mm,
in my
mhm,
experience.
mm.
Um, do places still close down on Easter Monday, right?
Yeah, I was about to say for restaurants, a lot of, I mean, it'll be hit or miss maybe. I mean, some of the in the tourist areas, the popular, you're going to find plenty of places to eat. But if it's a real local place, you might want to check in advance. If you have a restaurant you're really counting on eating at, they may not be open. They may not be open on Easter. And then you're right to say Easter Monday is a holiday here. It's called Pasquetta, and places may or may not be open. So Melissa asks, how do the holy doors during the Jubilee work? What time is the best to go there? So this is a more involved response, and what I'll do is I'll put this specific information about how you can get access. I'll put that into the Q&A recap because it's a lot to go into here. But generally speaking, the way that they've worked at this Jubilee year is you have to actually have an app on your phone, and you have to register as a pilgrim. There's two options actually. There's like a tourist option from what I understand, and there's a pilgrim option, but it's a little bit involved. So what I'll do is Melissa, I'll answer this for you, typing it out in our recap, and that way you'll have the links where you can go to sign up for getting access. Do you have anything you wanted to add to that maybe in talking with people of you?
I
No?
think, yeah.
Okay. Okay, perfect.
I was actually looking at the question below. I think
From
that's,
Robert?
yeah, that
Yeah,
one
go
might be
ahead.
for
You can take
me.
that one.
If you have tickets to a particular train and time, can you use it for another train departure? Generally speaking, no, although especially in the case of a regional train, you can usually change the ticket time at the train station. Or if you know in advance, of course, you can reach out to us directly and we can change the time for you. That's for regionals. For high-speed trains, it can get a bit tricky. And those are the ones where you really cannot take another train unless you change the whole ticket, because they have guaranteed seating. So you will have a specific seat that you have reserved on a Frecciarossa train, for example. Freccias are usually the trains that go from one city to the other. So if you have a high speed between, let's say, Rome and Florence, it's likely a Frecciarossa. And of course, if you get on another train, the same seat that you had on the previous train may be taken by somebody else. So if you plan on changing that ticket, definitely make sure to either reach out to us at our customer service or directly speak to somebody at the station so that they can make that change. If you do not change the ticket, you can incur a fine, so be careful.
Okay, so we have a few more questions. I'm gonna keep typing your questions in. Absolutely keep typing them. We're gonna be able to answer the three that we have waiting right now, or the four rather that we have waiting right now. Anything from here on that you type in, I will answer in our recap offline. So don't, you'll get your answer. We just can't do it live right now, but we'll do these last four. I'll let you take Tony and Nancy because you're from Venice, you would probably be better for Nancy's question.
Makes
Tony's asking
sense.
about the trains, yeah.
For Tony's question, train from Termini to Napoli, how much time should I allow when I get to the stazione? I would recommend about 20 minutes. In Termini, Termini is a bit of a big station, but it's there's a lot of signs that you can follow. I would say it's easy not to get lost. However, there are a lot of platforms, so we do recommend about 20 minutes if you just want to find your platform and find your way around. Or if you want to hang out at the lounge, you can, give it a bit more time and go chat with our hosts and get a coffee. That's also an idea. Whereas Venice on Easter Sunday and Monday, will the tourist activities, gondolas, etc., be closed on these days? I would say most of them will still be running, especially for Italia tours. If there's a date where tours will not run, you will see them grayed out on our website. So you'll see, I do believe most of our Venice ones are running. I cannot say 100%, but if you're interested in a specific one, you can probably check the availability on the website, or if you want to reach out to us and have us take a look, that's also perfectly okay. Gondolas run almost 24/7. I'm pretty sure there's somebody by a canal that will be available for sure.
Sarah asks, are the train stations throughout Italy hard to navigate? I would say no. I don't find them hard to navigate. I mean, even the largest ones like Rome, or like you said, Termini, it's quite easy to navigate. It has shopping downstairs, trains on the top level, and then eating, trains on the middle level and eating upstairs. It's all quite well signposted. And then from there,
Yeah,
you just get smaller and smaller stations. And some of the smallest stations, like Assisi, there's like two tracks basically. So it's quite small. You won't have trouble navigating.
definitely. Is it pretty easy to drive around Italy, or would you recommend using public transportation and or taxis or Uber? That depends. Um, as I mentioned, mo most of the time it's fairly easy to drive in Italy. I think it can get a bit busy with traffic. It can get a bit tricky in that regard. If you're in the countryside, I don't think there's anything specific that would make it a challenge. However, something that I always mention and something that I partially mentioned before, definitely I would avoid cities, especially I'm thinking Milan and Bologna, two of the most infamous cities when it comes not to the driving itself, but the fines. We have these things called ZTL in Italy. They're basically restricted areas for traffic, and they become a problem for tourists and locals alike. The amount of fines that I have gotten just from driving in a place where, because there's a sign that tells you, oh, from here on out, you're not supposed to be here with your car, but they're
And
so
there's a
small
camera.
sometimes.
There's a
Yes.
camera. After you pass, you can't they take your picture and you get the ticket gets mailed to you. So if you're going around and around and you go through that thing a couple times and you don't know, they'll send
Yep.
you a ticket every single time you pass through.
10 different tickets
And
in the mail.
if you don't know Italian, you're not sure, you can't read the sign that says ZTL aperta, chiusa, you'll just be like, "Oh, I'm just going under a thing."
Yeah, it's
No
just a
big
bridge, you
deal.
know? And there's no other indicators. So it's very tricky when it comes to that. So inside the cities, most of the time, especially Florence, Milan, Rome, they're so well connected. Using the local transport
Yeah,
is
no
usually
need
the
to
best
drive.
option.
I always tell visitors don't get a car in Rome. There's no need to. Why? Why would you? Why
It's
add that kind of
really,
stress to your vacation?
yeah, yeah, definitely. The other piece of advice that I always give, and it's usually for travelers that want to go to like the Amalfi Coast or a very small village in Tuscany, I would avoid SUVs if possible. They will not fit. They will actually not fit on the roads. If you're trying to explore a more remote area, a smaller village, let's say like a medieval place, they didn't have cars back then, and there are some small, a Punto, a small Fiat. You may be able to get around. Anything small, anything bigger than that can become an issue. So unless you
Yeah,
have a lot of luggage and no
yeah,
other option,
yeah, yeah.
definitely.
Good point. All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending today and your wonderful questions. Like I said, I'm going to send an email with the recording. I'm going to do a recap of our Q&A. And I invite you all to visit the community if you have any other questions or reach out to anyone at ItaliaPass or ItaliaRail if you have questions about your travel. So have a wonderful time. Buon viaggio and enjoy your time in Rome.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye.